All right, today I spent a couple of hours updating my resume with AI and looking at how my skills really haven't changed much in the last 20 years because IT, even though it's technology driven, what we do as IT professionals has pretty much stayed the same. We keep the lights on, we keep the computers working. We don't do much more than that. And so when I asked the chat GPT why people shouldn't go into technology, this is what it said. And all of these talking points are things that I personally have experience with because I've been in this field for so long. It is not the lucrative go to for a career that it was 20 years ago. The wages have just gone down to hell, and management and the executives now demand so much more from every individual. Performance is a key factor in whether or not you're going to be able to keep your job. And without further ado, let's get into our talking points for this topic that means a lot to me. All right, so I have mentioned high stress and burnout to you guys on many occasions. It's the primary reason why I'm working on my resume right now to find something less stressful that pays more money. But when it comes to burnout in jobs like this, I mean, my last senior manager, the one that I had 2 years ago, showed up new on the job and he just looked at me and it's like, you're already burnt out. And when he got fired, he said, now I know why you're burnt out, Millennial Steam. It's this job. It's the way that this job functions that is very unnatural for other technology groups. It is extremely small, meaning that everyone has to do everything. And that was the reason the last senior manager, a, a major reason why he's no longer with the company, is that he had that small mentality where all you do is do this. I assure you, that's not technology anymore. If you're coming from a very large corporation with a very um, extensive budget, maybe that's the case. But when it comes to smaller groups, like my core group probably has, I'm going to say, a network guy, one server guy, and about half a dozen people working the day-to-day ticketing system. And then there's me, and then there's the top tier management, the executive management, and the lower tier, the everyday management. That's it. And I have 25 different offices that I'm personally responsible. And that's a lot to put on one person. This kind of stress on such a small department didn't exist 20 years ago. There would have been double or triple the amount of people that work in this department, at least a little redundancy. When I'm not at work, the type of work that I do just doesn't get done because there is no working management above my head. There's just executives and people who make financial decisions. There's no one who can step in and do my job. And that is a recipe for burnout because that means I can't be gone for very long before things stop working. And that's one of the main reasons I'm afraid of going back to work on Tuesdays because there's going to be things that happened while I wasn't there in the past few days. All right, our second talking point is rapid technological changes. This is very relevant, especially when it comes to security. Like, I had the security officer tell me the other day that if people can't adapt to rapidly changing security needs, then they don't need to work here. And when you have an older workforce, when you start forcing them to follow new ways of doing things, of the way that their computer is going to function, they're going to get left behind. You have to use your own time to stay relevant in the technology field. They may tell you that you can do training because they require a certain amount of training hours every single, I believe every 6 months you have to complete like 30 hours of training outside of your job. And that means that you have to complete those hours, or when it comes time to review, you will get severely dinged for not completing corporate required training allotments. And so, in order to be able to do that, you're going to have to spend your nights and your weekends doing that training. And to me, it's not fair, but it is the field. And every day you have to Google something new. Every day there's going to be something that you don't know, regardless of how long you've been doing the same kind of job. I have to do it every day. When I don't know how to order something, I don't know a model number of something. Like last week, I was in the ceiling because one of the projectors went down and I needed to figure out how to get more bulbs for projectors. And no matter how many searches I did on Amazon for that part, I couldn't find it. So yeah, it's sometimes the answer isn't there. All right, talking point number 3. Job outsourcing and automation. Many IT jobs, especially lower level support roles, have been outsourced to countries with cheaper labor. We all have encountered this. Many websites no longer have phone numbers or human beings when it comes to needing help, right? You forgot your password, you're not able to use the password reset tool. You want help. When I got demonetized from YouTube, there was no internet complaint department there. It was fill this out, load up a video that tells us why you violated our policies, which to this day I still don't know exactly what policy I violated, but the algorithm was quick to kick me out, regardless of the 18 years that had been on YouTube. The algorithm made that decision, and that was it. And the human agreed with the algorithm, and that guy probably has to review hundreds, if not thousands, of channels, because I noticed now that I'm rebuilding my channel, they have lowered the threshold for how much you have to reach before you get monetized again. They literally cut it in half from what I had to do, and it took me so much of my life to get to. But outsourcing and automation are the way that they're going to find ways of cutting humans out of the picture because humans are too expensive. If you have to move your help desk to India, which we all know that low level tier support is associated with an Eastern Indian accent, because these people aren't techs, they're script readers. Whenever I have to call Dell and I get a person in India, I can tell everything they're saying is a script because they do not know anything about computers. It's just read the script. And it's one of my pet peeves, having worked in technology my whole life, is to talk to someone that can't answer a question. They're just reading the script. All right, moving on to our next talking point, and this one seems to come up quite often, especially when it's related to Gen Z, is a work-life balance. It's almost not present. I work 14 days in a row because there's still software programs with our deployment of our major systems, and these problems are still not resolved. And not I'm not looking forward to coming back into the office on Tuesday because they're corporate wide. I heard them from at least half a dozen schools, all having the same issue, and all those complaints come through one person. Work life balance in technology jobs just isn't possible because they don't have enough people. They want to crunch people. They want to make certain that you're miserable at your job. I am 100% believe that management and HR go out of their way to ensure that every employee is as miserable as humanly possible at their job. And it can all be fixed with money. Just hire more people. But they'd rather not do that. They'd rather burn out every person that they hire. I mean, if I've been through 4 senior managers in 3 years of working there, it means that something's horribly wrong. We were doing some training the other day, and my boss's boss says to the person doing the online training, he says we've had a lot of turnover, and I'm like, that's an understatement. That's a real understatement. And I've never heard him admit it. He's always one of those people that stop being so negative, millennial Steam. Things are fine. I'm like, yeah, things are fine. That's why I'm looking around at all these disgusted faces at work and more complaints about working there than I've ever seen at any job I've ever been at. And this is from the ground all the way up to the very tippy top. All right, complexity of roles. As IT systems become more complex, the roles themselves require deeper specialization. This is why they include this phrase into every single job that they post. Other duties as assigned. I don't know how many times I've been told that to my face. I signed up for one job, but other duties as assigned can include anything. It's just not computer stuff anymore. I do HR, I do accounts payable, I do purchasing, I do, good Lord, I work with vendors, I work with the cleaning people, I work with the maintenance people, I work with the construction people, I work with the people that put in the wires. IT isn't what it used to be. And this other duties as assigned is the catch-all for making people have to know how to do all of those other things. And when you complain, like I've complained about having to do server and stuff because it's just not part of my job. My boss just looks at me, other duties as assigned, millennial Steam, and I really got very aggravated with having to do to work on those systems, especially since I have very limited knowledge about remote management systems. That's not part of my job. That's not anything that's on my resume, but I've had to learn how to do it because either you learn or you get out. All right, the perception of value. In many organizations, IT is seen as a cost center rather than a driver of business value. The least staffed and most overworked is your technology group. When you look at how many people work in HR, they have a standing army of people. When you look at your technology group, there's a handful of ragtag guys that all look like they came out of a time machine from a period from a bygone era. You have guys with long hair, mohawks, mainly a lot of bald white guys. But you have this characters that end up in this field because I don't know what attracts people to technology, but there's definitely something a little odd about all of them. Whether it's their personalities, it's their social skills, it's it's a mixed bag of weirdos. I've worked in this area my whole life, and sometimes you'll meet someone that's almost normal, and then they'll open their mouth, and you're like, that's why you're single, and you will never, ever get any pink taco. All right, here's another big one for many people who work in this field: isolation and a lack of recognition. IT roles can be isolating as they often involve working alone on technical problems. This is something you'll notice is that the employee of the week or recognition of the month is never going to be with your technology group. It's always someone in HR, it's always someone that's working as an academic person, an administrative person. IT never gets any recognition. But when things hit the fan, IT work often goes unnoticed because it's expected that everything should work. Failure, however, are highly visible. Oh my gosh, this is so true. And at my evil corp, we've had one major crisis every single week for months, going back to pulling software licenses and having parts of your computer that are no longer functional, running out of licensing, which has been a huge problem in my area, and accountants, people up there, financial people, making decisions without consulting the technology group about budget cuts, and then finding out that something doesn't work because someone didn't pay the bill or someone just decided that they didn't need that anymore. And so, uh, moving on to the isolation part, isolation of working in technology is a bitter pill. Sometimes you just sit in a tiny, you don't even really have an office. There are times where I've worked where I sit inside of the server room. It's loud, it's cold, and no one comes back there. You could easily be that little old lady that bid it at Wells Fargo and nobody found her for 4 days. That can easily happen to anyone in the technology group. Because as long as there isn't a reason to go talk to those weirdos, you don't. As long as everything is working correctly, if you can get to the hub, you're golden at work. But the second you can't get to your favorite website, you're going to go looking for that guy. What was it on Wednesday? The For some reason the network just went down. And I was minding my own business over here, working on something else, and suddenly I noticed that there's an increase in the activity of the end users towards my group. And I do a speed test, and it turns out that there's no network going down. Plenty of up, though. There was still a gig up, but nothing coming down. And you're like, this doesn't end well. This day doesn't end well. Wednesday, I was right there on quitting because I'd had enough of my boss's attitude towards me that just progressively has gotten worse and worse over the last 6 months. Ever since he fired the senior manager, he's been coming after me to do the same thing, even saying that I act like the senior manager. And I'm like, hmm, let's see. There's only one person here who has better attendance than myself, and the guy won't take a day off, and he's been there for over a decade. That's the guy I have to compete with. So, yeah. And so isolation is a natural part of being a person in technology. You don't have a whole lot of free time. Your free time is spent doing the things you don't have time to do during your normal day. All right, so my final talking point here is increased competition. And this is what I've told you guys on many occasions is that technology has had major increases in competition because everyone thinks they're going to get rich working in technology. When I was a teenager, I remember writing papers about as long as you have computer skills, you will never be unemployed and you will always be making a halfway decent buck. Fast forward into my adulthood, and teenager me had no idea how saturated technology would become with every Tom, Dick, and Jerry thinking they're going to win it big. And then they get into the field and realize there's not a whole lot of room for new players. And so the IT field has attracted a large number of professionals due to its historically high salaries and job securities. This has increased competition, making it harder to stand out and secure top positions. There are very few top positions. At My Evil Corp, if you work there, you're already topped out. There is no forward momentum that you can have in order to move to a better spot. All the senior roles are full of people that are going to retire there, or people that are going to have to be fired for some horrible reason that I don't want to go into on this channel. But for the most part, it's all locked up there. And for people who lose those senior level positions through performance or layoffs, they are in a tough boat because as I've been working on my resume today, I realize that I'm in direct competition with every single other person that doesn't like their job right now. And believe me, there are a lot of people that either don't have jobs or don't like their current job. And a lot of it has to do with management, right? There's that saying out there that says people don't quit jobs, they quit managers. And that's exactly why I'm looking to leave, is because I can't deal with these people anymore. Their ideas and crazy notions about what your job is in this field are absolutely insane. And you get to a point where you just don't want to be part of that anymore. It's too obnoxious. And so there's no longer a field of specialists. Like you used to go to school to learn how to do certain things, right? You'd go to school to do cabling, or you'd go to school to learn about programming, or you'd learn to do work hardware. You would learn how to do different things. Now you're expected to have a cert in security, a cert in hardware, a cert in server, a certain network. And if you don't have certifications, you better have 5 to 10 years of experience in those areas because it's become a career for generalists. Your main IT person better know how to do everything from being able to rebuild a server to answering the phone for a password reset from an 80-year-old lady who's never used a computer. I've I've heard my boss take those phone calls, people. It's not hyperbole. Sometimes I hear the calls that the highest level of our technology group has to take, and they're literally talking to a person who lives in the middle of nowhere, who's trying to get onto her work computer using her AOL account that she's had since the 90s and doesn't understand why it's not working. I can't tell you how many people take remote jobs while not paying for internet, while mooching internet from their neighbor or a business around them, and you just can't do that. And it's the people in technology who have to tell you that. I don't know how. I probably ordered at least 50 network cables since I've been at this company for people who can't connect their wireless to their work computer. So they've got to drag a cable from one side of their house to the other. And in fact, how long was it? Maybe 2 months ago, I asked a girl who messaged me and said, "Hey, Millennial Steam, I need a cable because my Wi-Fi is too far away from where I use my work computer at home, and I need to connect it." And I was like, "Well, why don't you just move it to where you need it?" And they're like, "No, I'm not gonna do that. Send me a cable." Not ask the simple question: how long do you need that cable to be? This is a traditional technology clueless person, and they decided that the best way to solve this problem, because they had no way of measuring, is to drag her body across 50 feet of carpet from one side of her house to the other, measuring using her body as a measuring device. At the end of that conversation, she gave me the thumbs up and said, "That's girl math." And I almost lost my you know what. All right, so in toxic positivity today, I put the stereotypes of technology people are often dead on, especially when it comes to hygiene and clothing. These people will not spend anything on looking nice or smelling nice. Anything having to be nice in technology, if you're good enough, they're going to give you a lot of leeway in how much you can let hygiene go to the last part of what they're going to ask you to do. In fact, when I worked at that call center, you could walk up and down the rows and you would smell sweaty fat man dripping in their cubicle because it's too hot and it's 70 degrees in there. But big men sweat from places that you don't even want to imagine. I mean, I used to have a guy that show up at work and he would start taking paper towels between the rolls in his stomach trying to get the stinky sweat out so it didn't start to smell bad, because he knew once that sweat got in there and it started to dry out, it was going to produce an odor that even the most I don't even know what to say. It will clear your sinuses. That's the kind of smell that these guys can produce. And if I seen it one place, I'd be like, you know what, maybe. But I've seen it everywhere I've gone. Is that these large, lonely men, they smell, and it ain't the good kind of smell. I'd like to say it's feet, but no, it's not feet. It's got other ingredients in there. But with that said, The video is now 25 minutes long. I think I've been talking enough. This is my third video of the day. If you guys are wondering, yes, I do like the sound of my own voice, but I'm also trying to grow a brand new channel. So thank you guys for coming over and subscribing. For you people on Rumble, um, I, I'm going to keep the channel at both places just until I can get paid by both. So that's the mentality there. I know that YouTube is a much prettier place to host my videos. Rumble, oh Lord, I have my uh my concerns, let's put it that way.